Hello everyone, and welcome to Vindicast number 11. I have a Masters level replay from the North American ladder. It is a Terran versus Protoss on Tal'Darim Altar. So as soon as this gets loaded in, we'll be able to introduce the players. Starting in the bottom left, we have the red Terran Senza Erori, I think that is. And in the top right, with a much easier name to pronounce, we have the blue Protoss player Insight. Okay, so this is on Tal'Darim Altar, the MLG edition, I think. I looked up the StarCraft 2 ranks for both of these guys, and I found something very interesting. Senza is he's a high Masters level player on the North American ladder, and Insight apparently is only a high Diamond. But he's a high Diamond player with a history of playing against people with a much higher MMR than him, so he's kind of an interesting player that way. I'm not exactly sure if he's a higher player Smurf account or if he just has a really wonky MMR. So we're going to have to see what kind of level of play he's going to be able to demonstrate in this game. Alright, and so we were on Tal'Darim Altar. Tal'Darim Altar is probably one of my favorite maps for Terran vs. Protoss. The mechanics of this map are so much different than any other map, and it really it promotes a more varied style of play than you'll see on a lot of other maps where a lot of other options are disabled. But because this map is so wide open, and there's so many little, nooks and crannies in the terrain that can be abused by one race or another, it really kind of leads to a lot of interesting games, in my opinion. I don't normally see bad games here, and I've seen a lot of really crazy ones, from the Jinro nuke back in one of the MLGs to a Creator Prime base race. I've seen a lot of base races on this map, and it just has a very rich history of providing very entertaining Terran versus Protosses. Just recently we had a game on this map for MLG Columbus, where Marine King and Parting actually it was Marine King and Parting and Marine King and Sase, both of them, actually produced a series of entertaining games on this map. So why is that, though? Why is that this map is so good for this matchup? Well, there's a lot of different reasons to it. Like most maps, the layout of the second base is very, very important, and on Tal'Darim Altar, the layout of the second base is such that it's usually easier. It's not as easy to defend the top of the ramp on this map in the early game than it is to defend it in the later game. This leads to a lot of very early aggression from both players, usually. I've seen a lot of gateway timings, immortal busts, all sorts of different things that work on this map. And on the Terran side of things, it's not very easy to cover the top of this ramp with bunkers. So Protoss feel a lot more comfortable attacking early on in the earlier on than they would on some other maps. And the other thing about it is that they have this other even wider ramp that leads into the third. So it's almost impossible to guard both sides, both entrances into the natural early on. So even though the map is so huge, your natural is actually much more exposed on this map than it is on a lot of others, especially in this matchup where you're not able to do things like force fast expand or wall off or something like that you'll see in Zerg vs. Protoss on this map. And in the later games, the huge wide open middle allows for a lot of different sorts of engagements, and because Terran loves to use drop play so much, this map is very, very friendly to that sort of play as well. So you have a Protoss Stalker coming in here. He's just going to be scouting a little bit, just taking some damage off those Marines with the shields. The reason why this is usually a good thing to do is because if you can damage a Marine for trading health points for shields regenerate. These Marines won't be able to heal until medevacs are on the field. So it kind of gives you a slight little advantage early on, as long as you don't take any permanent damage to your Stalker. So if you have good control like this Protoss seems to have, or at least seems to think he has, then you really want to do that early on. Just try and trade as much health from these Marines as you can without losing your Stalkers. But losing them is kind of a big deal because they're such an expensive unit, in the really early stages of the game. Okay, so The builds for these players is that Senza went for a very early gases expand. He has since taken both gases and is powering up his tech. The Protoss player, on the other hand, has gone for a very safe 1-gate expand. No Nexus first. His Nexus is just finishing. And we have an economic lead for the Terran at the moment because of those 2 mules. A gases expand is very, very helpful, even because you don't get like double... You get it for 2 reasons. You get the double SCV production, which will ramp up your SCV production much faster than you can get on one base, but you also get the second mule down quicker, which will obviously jump your income, your mineral income, higher than your opponent's. Even though Insight has more probes, Senza has a higher mineral income. That's the benefit of having those mules early on. But the Protoss does have double Nexus down. He is going to be able to Chrono Boost both Nexus. He will be able to get out a ton of probes early on. And my question for both these players right now is, which one of you is going to expand to the 3rd base first? Now, defending on the 3rd base is very, very critical on this map. It's not easy to defend both sides. This ramp is very, very wide, and it lends itself right into a very, like, you know, nicely sized choke point. And it's really easy to kind of like juke, jive, and go back and forth between this ramp, and assault your opponent's natural or his 3rd base. So if you're the first person to take that 3rd base, you have to kind of accommodate resources into defending both bases. And if your opponent is going for a very powerful timing attack, that's usually what ends games on this map. Is whoever takes the 3rd base first, if their opponent doesn't go for a 3rd base following it, then it really comes down to how effective that attack is on the 3rd and the natural. But both players are playing very safe right now. We do have a little move out from the Terran on the map. This is really just to clear out the watchtowers, put a little pressure on his opponent, just so that he recognizes what his opponent has and doesn't just play super greedy. We have a double forge coming up from the Protoss. We don't have a double engineering bay coming from the Terran. I know he has at least one, but I can't find it. Okay, there it is. He does have at least one engineering bay. The Protoss is going for double forges, and usually when a Protoss does that, it usually means that he's interested really only in the late game. He doesn't want to go for... He doesn't have tech beyond a 3-gate and an immortal, so you're not going to be able to go for any sort of huge timing attack off of that. Now, like I've said in one of my previous Vindicasts, I think it was the one I casted on Daybreak, the current metagame is really favoring a lot of Templar, High Templar into charge lot play before Colossus in the current metagame right now. It's more mobile, and it's not quite as hard countered as you can have with some Colossus builds that the Terran is prepared for it. But we don't have that kind of tech going down right now. We don't even have a cybernetics core. And the Protoss really needs a cybernetics core if he wants to continue chronoing out those upgrades. We do have an engagement coming down here on the middle of the map. We have a lot of zealots going down, but those force fields are preventing a little bit of the army from coming up here. And this immortal is doing a lot of damage to those marauders. Protoss player did come out slightly ahead here. He was able to kill a lot of immortals with that, but I don't think he should be leaving his ramp. He could lose a lot of sentries in this engagement if the Terran focus fires them, and he is. He's trying to focus fire the sentries. He does kill one stalker and one sentry, so I mean that was an unnecessary loss from the Protoss. He could have just stayed up on top of his ramp, but the Terran is making another command center, and it's already down. He is powering up his Raxes, so the Protoss needs to start utilizing that little advantage he just took and start taking his own 3rd base. But it looks to me, because he just dropped down those 3 additional gateways, that he actually wants to go for some kind of gateway timing attack. And this is not going to work. Those medevacs are going to prevent him. He already has medevacs and stim and +1. That army is going to be very difficult to break without some sort of splash damage. I think the Protoss is... He's backing up, but I think he is actually really committed into doing some sort of damage with this attack. I just don't think this is going to work. The Terran has these medevacs. He has a lot of Marines and Marauders with stim and +1. He has an upgrade advantage over his opponent. No, he doesn't. Not anymore. Those +1/+1 did just finish, but +2 and +1 armor is on the way. That second engineering bay has been completed. But this could be a big deal. If the Protoss pushes up right now while he's clearing out these rocks, he could catch him right here in this very narrow choke. You do not want to fight Protoss in this narrow choke. Those force fields will carve up that army very, very easily. The factory being landed over here. He's just going to make a Hellion here just to kind of harass his opponent, force him to make some sort of units back home to deal with this. So the Protoss is going to be moving towards the third base. He's going to be moving up here. He has this pylon that's already down here to warp in additional reinforcements. He's going to be attacking from this angle. The Terran is moving out. He sees this pylon, but he's out of position. No, oh, this is not, all right. This is a much better position for the Terran to fight the Protoss, and he's way out in the open. That gives him a lot of room to maneuver around force fields. The Protoss doesn't want to fight the Terran army out here. Those Zealots don't have charge yet. This is really all going to come down to force field placement and how the Terran's going to micro. He has an additional army coming in from the other side. Those are pretty good force fields, though, and the Terran is getting a lot of his army stuck, but he is losing immortals on the other side. This army is a lot more expensive. Sentries are going down for the Protoss player. This is really, really even. The Terran looks like he's going to take this, though. That's too many Marines. He's going to get down those immortals and those sentries, and the entire Protoss army is going to go down. Those additional Zealots are not going to do very much once the Terran decides he wants to start stepping against them. This army has been destroyed. The Terran is occupying his third base. He hasn't saturated it just yet, but that's just a simple matter of dropping mules at it. The Protoss, on the other hand, is starting his Colossus tech up. He is getting +2/+2 and thermal lances, so his army is going to start to become very deadly in a moment, but he did lose a lot of units in that attack. If he had stayed back, played defensively, by the time that these Colossus come out, he would have had a lot of units to buffer for them already. He is clearing out the rocks for his third base, but he's definitely behind his opponent who already has that third base up and running. The Terran is going to need to start utilizing his economic advantage soon. He wants to start trading units now. His units are a lot cheaper. He wants to whittle down this Colossus count, make sure that the Colossus doesn't have supporting units just yet. And this is an interesting decision. He's going for Blink over Charge with Colossus tech. That's not something you normally see. But he is getting down that +3/+3 attack and armor. That is going to make his army very deadly. He's already pulling ahead of the Terran opponent, who is just starting his +3 attack, but is only who's only starting now his +2 armor. So the Terran is going to be in a difficult position in a moment. He's using all that Chrono Boost energy to make sure that these upgrades get out as soon as he can. So really at this point, it doesn't really matter that he doesn't have charge just yet, or he does have charge, excuse me. I'm totally wrong on this one. He did research charge while that attack was going down at the bottom. So he already has charge and Colossus tech. Vikings have been started. I don't know if the Terran has seen that the Protoss already has Colossus tech down, does he? No, he doesn't. He's just being safe. This Terran is being pretty smart. He's just being safe. Oh no. I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm off my game today, apparently. He's using this factory. This factory is scouted the fact that he has Colossus. So he knows that they're there even though he hasn't seen the tech. And he already has his Viking production started. But these +3/+3 is going to be a problem in a moment. Even if the Terran has the Vikings to deal with this, I mean, these 3/3 Zealots are going to be very difficult for the Terran to handle right now. But because he is chopping down this Templar archives, it doesn't look like the Protoss is interested in some sort of timing attack with these Colossus right now. It just looks like he wants to secure his third base and go for the ultimate death ball of Archon, Psionic Storm, Colossus, and Stalker tech. But here we go. The Terran is moving out. He is max. This is a 200 max Terran army with Vikings, Marine Marauders, Stim, Medevac. Everything but ghosts. He doesn't have ghosts, so these High Templar could be a very big problem. If we see the Protoss utilize feedback the way that we saw the Protoss use feedback in another cast that I just did, this could actually be a really big deal. So whether this decision is whether or not he's going to be morphing all of the High Templar into Archons, it doesn't look like he's going to. So he's going to have some extra High Templar. Psionic Storm has not even been started yet, so those are just for feedback. We have the Vikings in position. This is a very good position for Vikings because it is so difficult for the Stalkers to actually get a good shot on them. We have the Terran army going around to this side of the map. His opponent doesn't know that he's going to be going up there yet. He will be able to snipe this Nexus. Oh, those Vikings did manage to get down one of those Colossus, but there are still two left. The Nexus just go down. The Terran needs to get out of there. He doesn't want to fight this Protoss army in this narrow choke. Those upgrades are going to place too huge of a priority. He doesn't want to fight them here. But that is really good micro from the Terran. But those force fields are amazing. Those force fields are going to be able to cut off this entire army. The Terran is picking up the army. There are no feedbacks going down on those medevacs. Those High Templar didn't really do anything. They are going down. The Terran is losing his entire army, but the Protoss is losing a lot of troops as well. those 3/3 Colossus really were just able to rip through that Terran Bio Ball very easily, but the damage, there was a lot of damage taken on the Protoss' end. He did lose that third base. He needs to reestablish it as quickly as possible. The Terran does have a lot of production, so he is able to remake this army. And this is one of the things about Tal'Darim Altar. The Protoss doesn't have a proxy pylon out on this side of the map. Yes, he does. He does have a proxy pylon out on this side of the map, so he is going to be able to attack. But the timing that it takes for this army to move across the map is giving the Terran plenty of time to reestablish his units. But he isn't making any more medevacs. He only has he does have 2 starports with reactors, but he's not making medevacs. He's just making Vikings. The Protoss is maneuvering down. He does have another pylon that he just built here. The Terran does see this move out, though. He has the sensor tower here. He does see this coming down. There are gateway units coming in, but those Colossus are not being protected. There are no protection for those Colossus. One of those Colossus is definitely going to go down. Is he going to be able to get both of them? He might. He just gets 1 Colossus, but now this army is lacking a lot of teeth. He only has 1 Colossus for splash damage, so even though he does have an upgrade advantage, and the EMP goes down on all those zealots, that Protoss needs to get out of there. He needs to get out of there, but he might be able to snipe another Colossus. No, he doesn't want to go for it. I don't know if the Terran realizes this, but he's not making any medevacs at all. That Bio army is a lot weaker against just basic gateway units without that. This is a couple more Vikings, not able to get down that Colossus. This Terran Bio army is really just trying to push this Protoss away from his base. He wants to get some pressure away from it. He is trying to take a 5th base. He already has his 4th base established. The Protoss has just managed to reestablish his 3rd base with no 4th base in sight just yet. He has this probe over here. He will be able to make a 4th base over on this side of the map. Psionic Storm has been researched during all of this. He will be able to use Psionic Storm to deal a lot of damage to that Terran Bio army that still doesn't have medevacs with it. Psionic Storm is a much deadlier attack if you're not going to be able to heal every single time that you're actually able to successfully dodge one of them. Command Center has been landed. He's going to clear out the rocks over on this side. He wants to take this Command Center and make his 5th base over on this side. Another Terran army moving out over here. He will be able to, if he does decide that he wants to scout that 4th base, he will be able to deny it and keep his opponent on 3 base. That would be a very big move. The Protoss is already mined out of his main. He has a lot, he's very oversaturated his 3rd. He needs this 4th base. That is a lot of Vikings to be able to take down the Colossus very quickly, but that's only 1 Colossus. The majority of his splash is actually in those High Templar. If he's actually able to get off a Psionic Storm on this army, there are no medevacs here to heal it, and those Archons will be able to do a tremendous amount of damage to him. Here come the ghosts. Here come the ghosts. EMP is going to go off on all the High Templar. All the High Templar have been EMP'd. These ones over here do not have enough for Psionic Storm just yet. The Terran is pushing in. He is morphing those additional High Templar into Archons, but that is not going to be as effective as Psionic Storm at this point in the game. But without medevacs, this army's not going to be able to do as much damage as it possibly could. There are 4 High Templar in that War Prism. Is he going to be able to drop them for Psionic Storms? He is, but his micro's not that good, not just yet. He does lose 3 High Templar. 3 of the 4 High Templar go down. The entire Terran army has been eliminated. He is making more units, and he is taking a huge economic advantage over his opponent. He is very oversaturated at this 4th base, though. He needs to transfer some SCVs over to this newly established 5th base. The Protoss army is moving into position. He already has these zealots that are down here harassing this 3rd base, drawing his army out of position, and that is a lot of Archons marching right up into that natural base. There are no bunkers down. The Terran production is very isolated. He needs to be able to deal with those Archons. He has a lot of ghosts. Those ghosts will be able to deal with those Archons very cost effectively if he's able to land consecutive EMPs, and the medevacs are finally back out on the field. That period of time where he didn't have medevacs is a huge deal. Archons are moving in here. He needs to position his ghosts to get good EMPs on here. If he can get good EMPs on these Archons, he'll be able to deal with them without too much trouble. Decent EMPs, but not good enough. Those Archons are going to be able to deal a lot of damage to this Terran army, and there are additional Archons being morphed in at the bottom at his 3rd. This is looking really bad for the Terran. It doesn't matter that he has additional bases over his opponent. If he does it, if his Protoss opponent is able to get into this production, it's pretty much over. players talking to each other. It looks like the Terran's conceding defeat at this point. And his Protoss opponent's actually doing a really good thing by expanding again while he's able to get him on the ropes like this. And that is a lot of Archons. That is a lot of 3-3 Archons. He doesn't have nearly enough ghosts to deal with that many Archons. Yeah, that's a lot of Archons. Yeah, I'm pretty convinced this is over. This proxy pylon here is going to allow him to use all of these warp gates to just keep funneling units into the production facilities. The economic advantage the Terran did have before is pretty much gone. The Protoss is going to be able to transfer probes over to this newly established 5th base. And what's interesting is that the 5th base for both players are right next to each other. I don't even know that either one of them knows that that's there. No, they have no idea that their bases are so close to each other. Okay, so the Protoss isn't pressing his advantage nearly the way that I thought he would. I thought he was just going to keep funneling reinforcements into the Terran's production facilities, which he easily could. If he kept doing that, he actually just would have been able to end the game right there, but he's backing up for some reason. He has additional gateways down. Those have not been transferred into warp gates just yet. He is clearing out this proxy pylon, so the Terran is being able to get his feet back underneath him. But he took a lot of damage. He lost his 3rd base. He lost a lot of units, and he still hasn't transferred SCVs over to his 5th. But he has a lot of mules over here mining this out. So the Terran's really only mining from 2 bases right now, and because he has mules, those 2 bases are going to be mined out very quickly. He is spending a lot of his money. His Protoss opponent does have a superior economy to him right now. No more Colossus in production, though. That's interesting. Did this Terran scout this base? No, he didn't. I think he's just moving up here because he thinks this base might be here. Or because he wants to clear out this whole area for additional expansions. Okay, so this 4th base is going to go down. This is actually kind of a big deal because this is really putting the economy advantage back into the Terran's hands. That's a lot of probes right there. Yeah, he's going to move up there and kill all those probes, and it's going to give him a good position for him to assault this his 4th base. This is actually kind of starting to frustrate me a little bit. The Protoss is doing such a good job utilizing all of his splash damage, and now he just is completely neglecting splash at all. This is pure gateway units. Pure gateway units does not win against Marine Marauder and Ghosts. Like, where is his Colossus tech? Oh, that's what he's spending all of his time on. He's trying to make a mothership right now. There's only one Colossus in there, and he's moving it away. He's going to be able to snipe this easily. You're going to be able to snipe that Colossus, man. You need to turn around and start attacking with the Zealots, at least. He has funneled him into this choke, but that's just too many units right here. That single Colossus is doing a lot of damage to this army, but that's just too much Terran bio. I don't know. I think this decision to fall back and wait for the mothership is actually a big deal. We do have a secondary attack going down here that has been cleaned up by psionic storms, but this army is just too deadly. This is just too much here. He still has 191 supply in Marines and Marauders. He is making a lot more Zealots to deal with this, but he doesn't have any more splash. He needs more splash. He does have the money to make another Colossus at least, but where the hell is the rest of his splash? That one Colossus is doing a lot of damage to this army, but it's just not going to be enough by himself. A good storm does go down. That might be enough to be able to clear out the rest of his army, but I don't know. Oh, he's not watching that Colossus. That Colossus does go down. All the splash damage has been eliminated. It's really just Zealots and Stalkers against this army right here. This is his only mining base. He needs to keep this base. The Terran in all of this has managed to snipe both the 3rd and the 5th. He's only down to his 4th base that he's mining with. His income is very, very low, even though he has 50 workers. He needs to figure out where he's going to reestablish a new base, and these Marauders are actually still doing damage to this army. This flood of reinforcements, if he sends them right now, should be enough to kill him. The Protoss doesn't have very much banked at all. That mothership is finally out on the field, though, but with no units to actually support her, what is she going to do by herself? This game got really weird really quickly. And he moves all of his High Templar out of the field of the vision of the... Oh, what? Why did he do that? Yeah, I don't know. This is pretty much game over. He has 150 minerals in his bank. All he has really defending this base is his mothership, which just go down. Okay, you know what? I think I just discovered why Insight is just a mid-level diamond player. He had this game won. He had this game completely won, and it almost looked to me like he threw the game. And I'm not normally a person that normally accuses players of this, but look at this position that he's in. He had played beautifully up until this point. And he easily could have sent this army in here, continued to warp in Zealots and Archons, and just put them in the production facilities. You can't kill anything as a Terran player if your production facilities are being camped. You just can't do it. And he's just sitting here idle, just completely neglecting it, chatting with him. He's taking additional bases out on the map, but he has enough right here, just right here, to actually do a ton of damage. And if he just camps, he just needs to camp the production facilities with these Archons, and he would have won this. He's not warping in reinforcements, despite the fact that he has a huge bank right now. He's not doing anything like that. He's just letting the Terran come back into this. He sees that he has a lot of production. He sees that he's actually doing a lot with this like small amount of units that he has here. And yet he's just not utilizing the obvious advantage that he has. I'm so confused. This really does look like an intentional throw. It really does. This player had been playing so perfectly up until this point. He was able to hold off this attack. He was able to hold off consecutive attacks that Terran did up until this point, overhead his third and fourth. Was behind economically for a vast majority of the game, and pretty much crushed the Terran in the mid-game. And then just, he throws it away here. Like, he has a huge economy right here, and then just decides he's not going to make anything. I don't know. Okay. Aside from the way that the Protoss was able to throw away his advantage, his critical advantage right here, one of the big reasons the Protoss got to this point in the first place is, if we go back a little bit further, this army that the Terran's building, he's at 189 supply and he has no medevacs, none. He has 81 SCVs, which is more than he actually needs, to be perfectly honest. You don't really ever need any more than 70 SCVs in any matchup as Terran. If you start to find yourself in a situation where you have multiple bases, just drop additional orbital commands. You really only need SCVs for Vespene and Geyser, or Vespene production. You don't need all that many SCVs for hogging your supply for minerals when you can just drop additional command centers and make mules. So this is a big problem on the one hand. On the other hand, too, he has his army right now consists of 3 Ghosts, 21 Marines, 22 Marauders, 8 Vikings, and no medevacs. And this is a big deal. This is really going to give you Terran players out there an idea of how important medevacs are. He has a supply lead on his opponent, and not only does the Protoss crush this attack, or destroy this attack, he actually really crushes it. It's really one-sided. Okay, look. He has how many Vikings in here? He has 9 Vikings over here. That is way overkill for just one Colossus. Vikings are not good at killing things on the ground. Not right now, they're not. And he doesn't have them upgraded either, so they are going to be terrible at fighting those Protoss ground units on the ground because they have 3/3 upgrades. So the Vikings are really just there for the Colossus. He really overmade them because 9 Vikings is overkill for Colossus. Now he doesn't have anything to deal with Psionic Storm and Archons. But even then, he gets off a really nice EMP here. He's able to do a lot of damage to this army, but without Medivacs, the Zealots are just too strong against the bio units. Alright, okay, so that EMP goes down. So there is no Psionic Storm in this army. It's really just Marines, Marauders, and Vikings. And if I remember how this battle goes, the Protoss is able to just kill this with just pretty much Archon, Splash, and Zealots. So 200 supply down to 136. 70 supply in units right there. A lot of that was in the Vikings. And if he had had Medivacs in that army, he could have just killed this army. After that really good EMP went off, run up his ramp, and won there. But instead, he really gives his opponent a really nice opportunity to just take a huge victory here. And that allows him to push his advantage down here to the point where he should have won the game. But for some reason, the Protoss didn't. So this is probably one of the more confusing casts I've ever done. I'm still not quite sure how I feel about this game, but I'm probably going to put this up anyway. So if you'd like to see more videos, or if you'd like to see your replay cast, drop me a line at ktvindicare@hotmail.com. Thanks for watching.